It's crazy that we have to talk about it. Desi Hasler sacked from the Manly Sea Eagles. This to me, look, it may turn out to be great, and you guys both know that we are more than willing on this show to say we got it wrong. We got it wrong. I think this is such a shocking decision, the way it's been handled. I think that I think they've always wanted to do, not always, but for a substantial amount of time, they've wanted to do this. They've tried to force him into him quitting, thinking that he would, I guess, throw his toys out of the cot and say, you know what, I'm not going to bloody take, you're going to put my assistant coach in and change all my coaching methods. He called their bluff and said, you know what, all right, we'll take your assistant coach, everything like that. And still they got rid of him. I think this is just a really, really poor call. I think it's, let's forget his coaching record, which is he's still, right now, his coaching record, it's like the fourth best right now. Like, and Guru, I'm sure you've got the record there. But matter of fact, an argument could be made it's third above Wayne Bennett over the last decade. Anyway, let's forget all that. This is a club legend. This is a club legend being sacked a year early because he's a little bit hard to deal with. Desi hasn't changed. Desi's not different to the bloke that won you those premierships. You got him back. So why are you sacking him when you knew what he was like? It is absolutely, it's shocking, and I've said it a million times before, but if they want to look at who's done a good job, they've gone through 8 or so CEOs in however long. The admin, does Manly make that much money? Is the admin doing the best they can do? I think they need to look internally first before they start looking at the coach for the reasons why as things aren't going so well. Guru, what do you think about the whole situation?
Oh, mate, it's crazy. Like, I remember when I first heard about this as a rumour, it must have been round 20. Like, that's almost 4 months ago I heard about this, and I just thought, there is not a hope in hell they could possibly sack him. No way. It just makes no sense. And, mate, even up until the day that it happened, even when it happened, I looked around and went, this can't be real. This is the most unbelievable decision. And, I'm sure we'll get to Seibold, but, he's a guy that's reportedly going to come in. I mean, mate, we just saw him in a team that was struggling to sort themselves out and struggling with culture and identity and everything. And like, he wasn't, I'd argue it got worse each week instead of improving. I can't understand. One, letting Des Hasler go is unbelievable, but then, I don't know, to turn to Seibold, the whole thing just makes no sense to me, mate. And this is just, my very small experience in business, and, I've been fortunate enough, all the jokes aside and all the carry on aside, Bloke is a successful business. Obviously, we're still really young, and I'm not Mark Boris or anything like that. Let's just get that clear. But I have had experience in dealing with successful people. And sometimes, because that you're surrounded by very, high, successful people that are got not an ego, but you have to have some sort of belief in your way to get to the higher levels. And I just think sometimes that you get around people that think they know best when they need to realize that that's not their area of expertise. And I think that this is a case of people thinking that, well, because he's hard to deal with, therefore, like, all they should be really doing with Desi is asking themselves, is he a high quality coach? If he's hard to deal with, yep, fair enough. But what's best for the club? What is best for the club is Desi Hasler right now. And I think that question has gotten lost in the, I understand in personal relationships, you can feel insulted, you can get angry, all that kind of stuff. But I always ask myself, whenever I ever feel like, something's gone wrong or something isn't treating me right, I always ask myself, what is best for bloke in a bar? Put my own feelings aside. I might be angry. I might be frustrated. I might want to go, you know what? I've got a bit of power here. You can fucking do this or you can do that. Put that aside, and I say, what is best for bloke? And I just think that, like, Manly hasn't done that in this situation. There's a group of people that haven't gone, you know what is best for Manly right now? Timmy, what do you think about the whole situation?
Yeah, just at Manly for years and years. I mean, they've had so much success on field, and I can't believe all that success that they've had hasn't translated to a more stable in-house at the club and among the admin. And it's just years and years of, there's always an issue going on in-house at Manly, and just seems to be finger-pointing. And if anything half goes wrong, there's someone's in strife for it. In this case, it's as if Desi Hasler's been scapegoated for a poor end of season, the jersey saga, which is just the magnitude of that, like, had that not happened, Manly probably make the 8, all things probably good and well, and who knows where we'd be now, whether Desi'd still have his job, and, maybe Desi's been scapegoated for everything that's gone on. That's probably the way I see it, but you look at the position became pretty well untenable for Desi in the sense that, there was talking of him suing the club and all these issues even before he'd been sacked, or at least to the public. So, it's very, very sad way to see him go. What ramifications are this going to have? At least now he's gone, they can start to rebuild and move on from this saga. But, the other $1 million or probably $2 million question is what do the Trbojevic boys think of all this? And, they're probably quietly seething a little bit themselves or getting sick of the instability. So it's an interesting few months to play out and see where we end up.
Look, it's the crazy thing is we've seen this before. They let go of Desi. Although I thought Tubes did a relatively good job, he had a much better squad to deal with than what they're currently dealing with at the Manly Seagulls. But basically, Manly, if they lose their main player in Tom Trbojevic, you could argue essentially aren't a top 8 side. Maybe they would have slipped in without the whole Jersey saga. I'd argue they've got a weaker squad than when they let go of Desi originally. Anyway, look, to be fair, as we said, if they've made the right call, then good on them. And it's a gutsy call. Like, we have to look at Rabbitohs. I know there wasn't as much negative feeling around the Rabbitohs for sure, but Demetrio has been fantastic. He's proven a lot of people wrong. Now let's get into the Seibold situation. Look, This is coming from someone that I was pretty critical of Seibold when he was at the Broncos. There was a lot of stuff that I felt I just disagreed with the way he did things. Just because he was, not great at the Broncos, I wouldn't write him off as a coach yet. I wouldn't say, he can't coach because he had poor time at the Broncos. But I would say, with all the information we have, I can't believe that they're most likely going to go with Seibold. Let's say I was Seibold or someone wanting to sign Seibold, I would have wanted to see Seibold go away, get success, whether it's in New South Wales Cup, the Super League, as a head coach, before I would re-sign him. In reality, he's gone away and been an assistant here or there and just walked straight back into a Manly Seagulls coach. Now, he's walking into a squad that, although probably has, maybe better leaders in Tom Trbojevic, Jake Trbojevic and DCE, the Broncos were, I think they were 5th or 6th the year that he came in. And then they went on to make the 8 and get beaten by a record margin. So he's going on to a club with less resources that finish in a much lower position. Again, I'm not saying his coaching career is over at all. I think that, he's so young, he's got so long, and this could be the making of him or what he went through. But it's just super surprising that Seibold is the answer to this, when you've already got a guy like Des Hasler sitting there. What do you reckon about the Seibold situation, Guru?
Yeah, as I said, he's probably not the guy that I would have gone for, especially when you had Des. Like, you had a premiership winning coach, a guy that's been successful. But I also think the reality of the situation is that, mate, if Turbo's hamstring holds up, I could fucking coach this team and they could be successful. So I really do think that, I think that the admin at Manly know they're in a position where if we can just get this one guy fit, I don't think it matters who coaches them, and I think they'd be leaning back sort of going, as long as he's fit, we're going to look like we've made the right decision. So it's an interesting situation. But as you said, if something does happen that he gets injured or something this year, like I personally thought that Des did, when Turbo got injured, I said to you two, they won't make the finals, no way. 5 weeks later, I thought, I was wrong. Des has got this sorted, they're going to make it. The Jersey debacle hits. Like, if something else goes wrong for them next year with Turbo's out, it's going to be a huge test for Seibold. It's going to be massive. And, history's shown us at Manly that if there's pressure on and they're not winning, we know whose head's going to fall. And then it's going to be tough for Seibold to build himself back up after that. But I think there's a really good chance that if Tom does play the whole season, they're potentially a top 4 team. I think they're definitely a top 8 team if Tommy plays the whole season. So interesting to see how it plays out, mate.
Yeah, look, I agree with you in regards to, Tom Trbojevic and DC, Jake Trbojevic. They're so good. But, and look, this is no disrespect to Seibold as a person, but look at the regression that young Broncos side made as players when he took over. And I know that's harsh, but it's the reality. There is no denying that young group of men regressed massively in that couple of years and are only just starting to come around. And I'm not saying that Tom Trbojevic will regress. He's a senior player. They've got senior players in key positions. But there is a chance there is at least some regression. Now, he could have improved. It may have been, it could have been the Wayne Bennett shadow that hurt him. There's a million reasons why it happened. But the reality is that Broncos squad regressed over those years and went from every good pundit in the game, or at least every pundit that's taken seriously, saying this is the best young forward pack we've seen in 20 years, to these guys are like not even arguably Q Cup standard at some stages. Timmy, thoughts about the Seibold situation?
Yeah, I'm probably not as critical of it as a lot of people, and the main reason being that I think Seibold, well, we've sort of said all season with this NRL coaching merry-go-round, there's not a lot of great options out there available. Now, there's a few that, you would argue that may have been better fits, but there's not a lot out there. I'm willing to give Seibold a little bit of a benefit of the doubt about his time at Brisbane. Like, it is just a whole new kettle of fish, that club. You go into the cauldron of Red Hill that we've seen ever since he was sacked by the Broncos, that he's already left the club, whatever you want to call it, that, they've still regressed. They haven't been any better. They've had this in-house fighting. They haven't got back on track. Now, just before that, he was the Dally M Coach of the Year at South Sydney, which is a big, big thing. He took them within a whisker of making an NRL Grand Final. He's still, I suppose, relatively young young enough in his coaching career. As you said, Kempy, would love to have seen him go and maybe take over a Super League side the last year or two and have a bit of success there. But at the same time, he's spent time in and around the NRL still. He's been at Manly before in an assistant role, so he'd know the club well enough, obviously enough for the club to back him and appoint him as a head coach now. So, look, while he might not be perfect, I think he's a very intelligent fella. He's shown that he can get success in the NRL. I think he would have learned a hell of a lot from that Brisbane experience. It was a tough one, but he'll have learned his lesson. So I don't mind Seibold.
Yeah, I agree with you in regards to he's so young. Like you can't just write his whole career off now. It's more just like what's the reality of that's happened in the last 2 to 3 years. But I will say, so did he coach in 2018 or 19 at the Rabbitohs?
18, yeah.
19? 18 or 19?
18.
18. Okay, so I just want to read you out this squad. So this is August 29, 2019. So relatively late in the year. Oh, man, now it's not loading. Anyway, you had Alex Johnston. Oh, my God, that is so annoying. Just for a sec, boys. Anyway, the squad that he had, and this is, I'm not being disrespectful, I actually thought, I'm pretty sure back in that year, I thought he was the coach of the year. I thought he was outstanding. But the squad he had was something pretty special. I mean,
do you want me to read out that team to you, mate?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so AJ at fullback, Campbell Graham on one wing, Robert Jennings on the other side, GI and Gagai in the centres, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds in the halves, Tom Burgess and George Burgess up front, Cookie at 9, Johnny Sutton in the back row with Angus Crichton, Sam Burgess at 13, then your bench, Cam Murray, Dean Britt, Tavita Totola. It was a pretty handy side, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, so I wonder, when you stack that up against the Manly side currently, it's chalk and cheese, and that's not disrespectful. I know Tom Trbojevic is unbelievable, but again, the reality is even with DCE, Reynolds in that period had a far more successful run than DCE ever had during that period. And I know DCE is one of the best sevens in the game, but in reality, Reynolds over the last 5 years, Renault's resume is a bit better in regards to club footy. So it is a really interesting task. It's another really interesting one is like with Seibold's coaching style, he is very, scientific and, forward thinking and, looks to the future. Manly are renowned for not having many resources. Trent Barrett literally, the reports anyway were that was one of his biggest issues, is that he felt he didn't have the resources needed. Is this a case of does Seibold even have the resources he's going to need to be the kind of coach he wants to be?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up because I remember when Trent Barrett walked in there and he was going to be the next hotshot young coach that was going to take them into the next era, and mate, it was an absolute shit fight there. And then they completely 180'd it, brought back in Des, and all of a sudden they're successful and relevant all over again. So I feel like at the Manly Seagulls they're a very unique franchise because things just have to be done in a Manly way. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just there's a Manly way to go about things that only seemingly Manly former players and whatnot understand. The only guys that have been successful there have been Jeff Tuvey and Des Hasler, realistically, over the last 20, 25 years. It's such a unique situation. That's what worries me with bringing someone from the outside. Granted, he has spent some time there as an assistant coach, but yeah, I'm still very nervous about it.
Yeah, so look, I put it this to be clear though, I think, and we'd all agree with this. We hope Seibold goes well. We hope he goes well. There's no denying that. He's young. He had success at the Rabbitohs. It was a very good squad. He's been in really good systems as assistant coach. Maybe the Broncos situation, there was a lot of off-field stuff that we aren't aware of. I hope he goes well. I really do. You never wish anyone bad luck going into a new gig. And maybe it's one of the great redemption arcs. It really is. But unfortunately, when you look at the facts of the coaching record over the last 3 or 4 years for Anthony Seibold, it hasn't been the best. But maybe it was just, we talk about you've got to be a Manly man. Maybe he just wasn't the Broncos man that was needed. He didn't have the right connections in the media and, in-house, even though he actually was at the club. I used to play with him in the Clydesdales. Anyway, so look, wish him the best for sure. It's really interesting times. It's not the crazy thing is he actually has a contract, I'm pretty sure, with England Rugby Union, so it's not a for sure thing. But the owner has literally already come out and said that he wants him as a head coach. So I'd be very surprised if he's not. What are we going to say, Guru?
Oh no, it's just crazy. I was just going to throw in there as well with Seibold. Like as much as at the Broncos, it felt like a lot of those players were regressing. Matty, you can probably touch on it more, but when he arrived, that's when Cody Walker really went to a new level, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Cody played Origin the next year, which was obviously off the back of that 2018 season. So, yeah, you're right. We had like Cody, Reynolds, Burgess, Inglis, all those guys.
Yeah, so as nervous as I am about it, there are plenty of positives throughout his career as well. There's no doubting that.
Yeah, for sure. Like Cody obviously definitely went better, but they did just land in the same spot as they were the last year, which was a prelim final. But you're right, though. You're right. Cody definitely, and you know what? Cam Murray and that, they all say that Campbell Graham as well, all say that Seibold had a massive influence on bringing them through. So, yeah, you're right, Guru. So, there is evidence.
I was just going to say, in fairness, that was the first of the 5 prelims that South made. The reason they didn't make the prelim the year before was because I think it was the squad was it was the same squad, but I think they were tired of Madge's coaching. So he inherited the same squad, but I think we thought he was the coach of the year because he did take the team to a prelim and they actually weren't there the year before. So
oh, really?
They finished 12th the season before. So yeah, I'm still very nervous about it. Don't get me wrong, but there are positives on there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I take that back. I apologize. I was wrong. You could make the argument that he had a lot to do because he was assistant coach, that he had a lot to do for setting that squad up to get them into the prelims for the next 5 years. So you're right. If you want to go, if you go back and say, okay, well, Broncos was, definitely not good. If you take a bird's eye view, you could say 50-50. He had some really, really strong success and just poor. So, as I said, good luck to the bloke. There's evidence. You're right, Guru. You're totally right. There is absolutely evidence that he can develop players and make them. You know what it is? It's just obviously being a former Bronco player. I'm more focused in on the Broncos situation, and then obviously Matty being a Rabbitohs fan, he was more focused on the Rabbitohs situation, so he'd know more about it.
But as a non-Broncos player, shockingly to everyone, and a non-South Sydney fan, that's what I focus on as well. I'm sort of looking for some silver linings out of this because I do think if Turbo is fit, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Look, it's hard to. You're right. Look, if Turbo is that good, he really is. On his day, is arguably one of the best players we've ever seen. Yeah. So as we said, good luck to him if he does get the gig. Manly going really well, especially like last year when they went really well. They're super exciting. They're so likable now with Tom Trbojevic